in this year we've visited this reading before, we sometimes forget that the context of the reading from Acts is a group of people who believed that the second coming, that Jesus would come, that the world would end, was imminent. So their context was not one of looking forwards to what could they leave behind for their children. Their context was a context of living faithfully in the here and now. And that was their context. But I think the wisdom in this we can learn from. How many of you have heard in your period of raising children that saying that if you don't have any children in the hospital, you don't have any children in jail, and you don't have any children living in your basement, you have been successful? Remember that saying? Or that success is to get the child out of the house. Well, you know, millennials have done this thing, it's called bounce back. We've all heard about it, right? Many of us have lived it. But now I'm hearing another piece of it. Have you heard the new piece of it? The kids bounced back. But now the parents have retired. And the parents can no longer afford for the kids to leave. Because the kids actually are paying some of the bills in the house. And so retirement for those people who complained that their kids bounced back is only possible because their kids are there. So now I've heard a new set of discussions. You know, when I was younger, the discussions I heard were from my colleagues who would talk about the kid living in their basement. And now I hear the discussion from some of my colleagues. They're thinking of getting married, or they're thinking of moving out, and if they do, I can't stay in the house. If they do, I can't continue what I'm used to because I've gotten used to and I've designed my life around the reality that they're there. Another version of this is the people who have members of their family who need childcare. The baby's been born. And they get meaning out of taking care of the grandchild. You see, this is all the different ways that we are recreating what was normal. For generations, intergenerational living was normal. And then we got this brilliant idea that every family unit could be mom, dad, kids. The kids would leave and mom and dad would keep the house on their own, and the kids would go establish another house on their own, and everybody would be these independent families. And guess what? It hasn't worked. So then we have to go back and we have to read this and we have to understand that communal living has been normal in many different places. I'll tell you a story on me and not understanding communal living, because you know what? I was young and innocent. Well, not maybe that young. But anyway, or that innocent. But I had this church in Bayonne, New Jersey. My kids were, Nick was born, girls weren't yet, so that tells you about when it was. And I had grown up with the expectation that every family unit would live in their own little house. Grandma would have her house. You know, that expectation. And this was a church that was made up of 12 people, 9 from one family, and 3 from the other family, right? And on Sunday morning, I thought it was so quaint and so wonderful that before church, they all seemed to gather at the matriarch's house, at Barbara's house, all the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, before they came to church. And I thought, what a beautiful thing that they all gathered there. And I was there for about 3 months when Barbara died. And I discovered that they all lived there. I had never even thought that that was a possibility. Like, over that 3-month period, this was a church that was so small that all the family events happened in the basement of the church, okay? So you didn't go visit people at their houses. Everybody was at the church when I was there on Sundays. And every birthday party and every anniversary was a church event. So it was a different kind of family structure. But it was foreign to me that their norm, and it was their norm, was to live intergenerationally. Now, think about what happens when we live with other people. When we live with other people, there are different possibilities. When we live with other people and it's time for a job change, there doesn't need to be the same kind of panic that there is when you live alone. Because when you live alone, there's no one else to bring in income. When we live with other people and somebody is not feeling well, there is somebody to bring them some soup. You don't have to get out of the bed and take care of it yourself. When we live with other people, there is a freedom of assets. We don't tend to think of it that way. And yet, we have changed our living arrangements over time so that we try to get people to live all by themselves. When I was living in the apartment complex that I lived in before Sandy came down, I was amazed at the number of people who lived as basically semi-retired, retired people in these 1- and 2-bedroom apartments with no one else there. You know, if you go back and you read about when we used to have monasteries and so forth, to be able to live by yourself, to be a hermit, was considered advanced spiritual discipline. We didn't think that everybody was ready to be a hermit. And yet, in our community, we think everybody should be able to be a hermit. If something happens to your loved one, you should be ready to live by yourself. Right? Isn't that the teaching of our day? That elders who get to a certain age and somebody dies in the family, the other one is ready to live by themselves. But that's not what our faith teaches us. What our faith teaches us is that we were designed as creatures designed to live in community. We were designed to share our assets, to live in community, and to try this radical thing of thinking of community as bigger than just blood. Typically, through the time when Jesus was alive, one thought of one's community as tribal. They were somehow related. For better or worse, we have lots of stories of dysfunctional families in the Bible, right? Not always was it a good thing that the tribe was together. But for better or worse, it was family unit. It was blood unit. And one of the things that Jesus does is Jesus goes and finds people with common interest. People who want to create this new world with this new possibility, with a new way of seeing the world that is loving, that is caring, that takes care of those who need it. And by Acts, we have this radical group of people, right, who say, we don't care what color you are. We don't care whether you're free or slave. We don't care if you're a man or a woman, young or old. Everybody's welcome. And it was such an exciting idea that everybody was welcome and that they could live together and share all things together. That we have this story from Acts of possibility. The story from Acts of people who decide to throw in everything and share together. Now, over the centuries since then, we have seen some groups come and try that. We have the Shakers and we have varying groups who have done likewise over time. And for varying reasons, some have worked, some have not worked. Utopian societies come and go. But think of the freedom that comes when instead of holding on to everything and saying, it's just mine, I can look around the room and say, it's ours. When I can look around the room and say, you know what, I can't do this piece, but there's somebody over here who can do it. Or when I look around the room and I say, Logan's driving us crazy. Could you take him today? Because you all know that's true, at least periodically. But that kind of sharing, that kind of caring, and then at the other end, the kind of sharing and caring of being together as people walk through the end of their life. That it's not that I'm stretched. How many of us have said it, okay? I'm so stretched. I have the children on one hand and my parents on the other. Right? Instead of bringing it together. We leave ourselves stretched. Instead of thinking of how we come together. There was a TV show this week. I don't know if any of you watch Blue Bloods. I tend to. And on Blue Bloods, in the storyline, the grandchild has the possibility of a job on the far coast. They're New Yorkers, so it's California. Okay? And you hear the family say, question, is that a good choice for this person when they've all lived near each other to go far away? I don't know that that's a question we ask in a lot of families anymore. We assume our kids are going to go to college and then go off. We never discuss who that works for. We never discuss if it's good for the parents, good for the kids. We assume that if you got a job offer, you'll go. What happens if we take control even that little bit to say it's at least going to be a conversation? That we, even if we don't share everything we have communally, as a whole community, we're going to pick our tribe, whether that's a blood tribe or a friendship tribe. And at least when people are making those decisions, there'll be discussion. Can we be that radical? To say we're at least going to make it a conscious decision that talks about everybody's needs. That when we have assets of time, of money, of abilities, that we are going to think about how our actions with them are going to affect others. Spent time yesterday with my friend Linda. Lots of you have met her, lots of you have prayed for her. As she struggled with cancer, and she's doing much better. And Linda has been sick for the last year and a half. And in that year and a half, her son has gotten married, and there's this beautiful little baby. And now it's time for mom to go back to work. And the amount of passion and light in her eyes when she said to me, they asked me to take care of the baby. I'm going to babysit the baby during the day. See, she has purpose now. We all need purpose. Remember, part of gratitude is coming to purpose. Part of this whole journey of talking about our assets is to have purpose, to think about what we're about in the world and making sure that we're working on that. And giving thanks for the ability to do that. So I invite you, as you think about gratitude, as you think about who your tribe is, whether your tribe is friends, whether your tribe is colleagues, whether your tribe is family. Think about how you can bring together the assets of time, of caring, of energy. And think about how your tribe can work better together. Amen.
Amen.